I stared at my mimosa, the bubbles rising to the surface like my anxiety. The rooftop brunch spot was packed with Sunday's usual crowd. Couples in matching outfits, friends catching up from the week, and my family. My older sister Sophia sat across from me, her designer sunglasses perched on her head as she dominated the conversation, as usual. And then I told him, "Listen, honey, either you promote me by next quarter, or I'm taking my talents elsewhere." She laughed at her own joke, tossing her perfectly highlighted hair over her shoulder. You should have seen his face. He practically begged me to stay. Our parents chuckled appreciatively. My father raised his glass. That's my girl, always knowing her worth. I nodded and smiled politely, pushing around the avocado on my plate. I was used to these brunches. They followed the same script. Sophia talks, everyone listens. Sophia brags, everyone applauds. I exist, barely anyone notices. But today was different. Today, I knew something she didn't. How about you, Maya? My mother turned to me, more out of obligation than interest. How's that marketing thing you do? Still working from home? Before I could answer, Sophia snorted. Mom, she doesn't do marketing. She's in like HR or something, right? One of those emotional support people who hand out tissues when employees cry. She winked at me, as if we were sharing a joke. Maya's too soft to make real decisions. She'd probably give everyone raises just because they asked nicely. I pressed, my lips together. I'm in talent management, actually. Same difference. Sophia waved her hand dismissively. You're basically the department's therapist. Not exactly the career path for someone who wants to make real money or have real impact. Our father checked his watch. Speaking of careers, Sophia, when do you hear about that big promotion? The one to senior creative director? My sister's face lit up. Any day now. It's pretty much a lock. Apparently, they've already started the paperwork. I heard through the grapevine that I'm the only serious contender. Well, no surprise there, my mother beamed. You've always been destined for leadership positions. I took a long sip of my mimosa, feeling the bubbles burn my throat. The irony of this conversation was almost too much to bear. But I stayed quiet, as I always did. Sophia turned her attention back to me, her expression a perfect blend of pity and condescension. Maya, honey, I could probably help you find something better than your little HR position. Something where you could actually use your degree. I have connections all over the media industry. I'm happy where I am, I said softly. Are you, though? She raised an eyebrow. Don't you get tired of being the office pushover? Always being nice, always being forgettable? The table fell silent. Even my parents looked uncomfortable. Sophia, my mother started, but my sister wasn't done. I'm just trying to help, she said defensively. Maya's always been content to hide in the background. Remember high school? I was class president and she was... What were you again? Oh, right, committee member of some recycling initiative that nobody cared about. I remembered it clearly. I wasn't just a committee member. I had written the entire environmental policy that the school still uses today. But Sophia had presented it at the assembly, so naturally everyone assumed it was her work. Some things never change. I've never been one for the spotlight, I said, keeping my voice steady. But that doesn't mean I'm not doing important work. Sophia rolled her eyes. Sure, helping people fill out health insurance forms is super important. Whatever helps you sleep at night, sis. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I glanced down to see an email notification. Urgent. Final approval for creative director promotion. I excused myself to the restroom, locked the door behind me, and opened the email. The message was from our CEO, addressed to the executive board and myself. Per our discussion, attached is the final candidate assessment for the senior creative director position. Maya, as head of executive talent management, Please review and give final approval by Monday morning so we can make the announcement. As you indicated in our meeting, this promotion is significant for our new brand direction. I opened the attachment, a comprehensive evaluation of 3 candidates. Sophia's name was there, alongside 2 others. The recommendation section had my highlighted notes from last week's closed-door meeting. While Sophia Green shows strong creative potential, her leadership assessment indicates concerning patterns of credit-taking and difficulty with collaborative projects. Recommendation: hold promotion. Reassess in 6 months after leadership training. I stared at my reflection in the bathroom mirror. 3 years ago, when I joined Armstrong Media Group, I started in a mid-level HR position. Quiet, diligent work, and a talent for seeing potential in people had earned me rapid but unpublicized promotions. 6 months ago, I was made head of executive talent management. Essentially, I evaluated, recommended, and approved every high-level hire and promotion across all departments, including my sister's. Sophia had no idea. She'd joined the creative team 2 years ago, and I had deliberately kept my rapid rise confidential. Not just from her, but from our entire family. I didn't want the attention, the questions, the inevitable comparison. I just wanted to do my job well. Now, standing in the bathroom of this overpriced brunch restaurant, I held my sister's career in my hands. 1 word from me, and her promotion would be approved or denied. I took a deep breath, made my decision, and typed a brief response before returning to the table. "Everything okay?" my mother asked as I sat down. "You were gone a while." "Just a work email," I said, placing my phone face down on the table. Sophia was still mid-story about her brilliance. "So anyway, once I'm senior creative director, I'll be managing a team of 15 people. That's basically the fast track to becoming creative VP in another year or 2. "When do you find out officially?" I asked, knowing exactly when the announcement would be made. "Monday morning, all-staff meeting," she said, practically glowing with confidence. "They're making a big deal of it, probably because it's the fastest promotion to that level in company history." I nodded, taking another sip of my drink. "That would be impressive." "Would be?" She narrowed her eyes. "It will be. It's happening, Maya. Some of us don't just accept whatever comes our way. Some of us actually reach for what we deserve." I forced a smile. "You're right. I'm sure Monday will be interesting." The rest of brunch continued as usual, Sophia talking about her achievements, my parents nodding admiringly, and me sitting quietly, finishing my overpriced eggs. Before we parted ways, Sophia hugged me with one arm, barely making contact. "You should come to the announcement on Monday," she said, not really meaning it. "It'll be in the big conference room at 10. For moral support or whatever." "I'll be there," I promised, meaning it more than she could possibly understand. Monday morning arrived with the typical chaos of the Armstrong Media Group offices. People hurried through the sleek corridors, carrying coffee and talking about weekend adventures. I arrived early, as always, and went straight to my office, a corner space on the executive floor that few people knew belonged to me, since I rarely used my title and preferred to meet employees in their spaces rather than summon them to mine. At 9:45, I gathered my notes and headed to the large conference room. It was already filling up, excitement buzzing in the air. Most of the creative team was there, along with various department heads and executives. I took a seat in the back, preferring to observe. Sophia arrived at 9:55, wearing a new outfit that had probably cost her an entire paycheck. She was beaming, accepting preemptive congratulations, already playing the role of senior creative director. She didn't notice me in the back of the room. At precisely 10:09, our CEO, Richard Armstrong, entered with the other executives. I should have been sitting with them at the front, but I had requested to observe from the general audience today. "Good morning, everyone," Richard began. "As you know, we're here to announce some exciting changes to our leadership team. The position of Senior Creative Director is vital to our company's vision moving forward, and we've been through an extensive evaluation process to ensure we select the right person. I watched Sophia practically bouncing in her seat, her smile wide and confident. Before I announce our decision, Richard continued, I want to thank our head of executive talent management, who has been instrumental in this selection process. Their insights and thorough evaluation have been invaluable. I felt a flutter of anxiety in my stomach. This wasn't part of the plan. In fact, Richard said, looking around the room, I'd like to invite them up to say a few words about the selection process. Maya Green, would you please join me? The room fell silent. I could feel all eyes turn to me as I stood up. From across the room, I met Sophia's gaze. Her expression shifted from confusion to shock to disbelief in the span of 3 seconds. I walked to the front of the room, acutely aware of my sister's stare burning into my back. As I turned to face the audience, I could see her mouth slightly open, her entire body rigid with surprise. Thank you, Richard, I said, my voice clear and professional. At Armstrong Media, our promotion process is designed to identify not just talent, but leadership potential. We look for individuals who demonstrate creativity, yes, but also collaboration, mentorship, and the ability to elevate others. I glanced at Sophia, whose face had gone pale. After careful consideration of all candidates, I continued, we've selected someone who exemplifies these qualities. Someone who has consistently demonstrated the ability to build consensus, nurture team members' growth, and put the company's vision ahead of personal recognition. I paused, letting the tension build. I'm pleased to announce that our new senior creative director is Marcus Chen. Applause erupted as Marcus, a quiet, hardworking designer known for mentoring junior staff, made his way to the front. Sophia remained frozen in her seat, her expression unreadable. After the announcement, as people congratulated Marcus, I felt a hand grip my arm firmly. Sophia pulled me into an empty office, closing the door behind us. What the actual fuck? Maya? She hissed, her voice shaking. You're head of executive talent management? Since when? And you denied me my promotion? I met her gaze calmly. I've been in this position for 6 months. Before that, I was deputy director of talent development for a year. And you never thought to mention this? Her voice was rising. Your own sister? You've been watching me bust my ass in the creative department, and you've been what? Sitting in judgment the whole time? I evaluate all candidates objectively, Sophia. That's my job. Objectively? She laughed bitterly. You clearly let our personal shit get in the way. You're punishing me because you've always been jealous. Your 360 reviews showed consistent issues with taking credit for team efforts, I interrupted, keeping my voice level. 3 of your direct colleagues reported feeling undermined in collaborative projects. Your creative output is excellent, but your leadership metrics are concerning. She stared at me, momentarily speechless. This isn't personal, I continued. I recommended leadership training and reassessment in 6 months. This isn't a permanent no, it's a not yet. I can't believe this, she whispered. All this time I thought you were just Maya the pushover, Maya the office therapist. And you're telling me you outrank most of the company? That you're basically deciding everyone's fate from your hidden corner office? I sighed. I don't advertise my position because I want people to be comfortable with me. My job requires trust and confidentiality. And what about trust between sisters? Sophia demanded. You let me sit there yesterday and mock your job while knowing you had the power to destroy mine? That stung, but I kept my composure. I didn't destroy anything. Sophia, I made a professional assessment based on data. And for the record, I wasn't the only one who felt this way. The decision was unanimous among the executive team. She fell silent, leaning against the wall. For a moment, I saw something I rarely witnessed in my confident, brash sister: uncertainty. Why didn't you ever tell anyone? she finally asked, her voice smaller. Mom and Dad still think you're some entry-level HR person. I shrugged. I don't need the recognition. I just want to do my job well. That makes no sense, she said, shaking her head. Everyone wants recognition. Not everyone, I replied. Some of us find satisfaction in the work itself. Sophia stared at me as if seeing me for the first time. I don't understand you at all. You never tried to, I said simply. A knock on the door interrupted us. Richard poked his head in. Maya, we need you for the executive briefing. Sophia, if you have questions about your performance evaluation, Maya's deputy can schedule a formal review session. The dynamic had shifted so dramatically that neither of us knew how to react. Sophia, always quick with words, stood speechless. I nodded to Richard. I'll be right there, I said. As he left, I turned back to my sister. I'd like to help you develop the leadership skills you need for next time. Not as your sister, but as someone who recognizes your creative talent. She didn't respond, still processing everything. Think about it, I said, moving toward the door. And Sophia, maybe you should reconsider who's too soft to make real decisions. I left her standing there, closing the door gently behind me. The following Sunday, our family brunch had a noticeably different atmosphere. My parents were subdued, glancing between Sophia and me with uncertainty. Someone had told them about my position, whether it was Sophia or someone else, I wasn't sure. So, my father began awkwardly. Maya, we had no idea you were so senior at Armstrong. I nodded, spreading jam on my toast. It's not something I usually talk about. But why not? My mother pressed. Executive level at your age, we would have been thrilled. I glanced at Sophia, who was unusually quiet, focusing intently on her food. I prefer to let my work speak for itself, I said. My father looked confused. But how does anyone know what you've accomplished if you don't tell them? Sophia suddenly looked up. Not everyone needs constant validation, Dad. We all turned to her, surprised by both her interjection and its content. What Maya does, she continued, is actually pretty impressive. She's responsible for identifying and developing the company's top talent. She has to understand people's potential better than they understand it themselves. I stared at my sister, unable to hide my shock at her words. And she's good at it, Sophia added. Really good. Our parents exchanged glances, clearly adjusting to this new dynamic. My mother reached for her mimosa. Well, we're very proud of both of you, of course. The conversation shifted to safer topics. My father's golf game, my mother's book club. When brunch ended, Sophia and I found ourselves walking to the parking lot together. I enrolled in that leadership program, she said abruptly. The one you recommended in my evaluation. That's great, I said, genuinely pleased. It's an excellent program. She stopped walking and turned to face me. I've been thinking a lot about what you said, about how I take credit for team efforts. I waited, letting her find her words. I think I've been doing that my whole life, she continued. Even with you. Remember that environmental policy in high school? I nodded, surprised she'd brought it up. You wrote every word of that thing and I presented it like it was my idea. She shook her head. I didn't even thank you properly. That was a long time ago, I said carefully. But it's a pattern, isn't it? She looked genuinely troubled. I'm learning that in the leadership program, how patterns from childhood continue into our professional lives. I didn't confirm or deny, letting her work through her realization. Anyway, she sighed. I just wanted to say I'm sorry for underestimating you. For Sunday brunches where I made your work sound meaningless. For a lot of things, actually. The apology was unexpected, and I took a moment to absorb it. Thank you, I said finally. That means a lot. We stood awkwardly for a moment before Sophia cleared her throat. So, any insider tips for this leadership program? I want to ace it. I smiled, recognizing her competitive spirit hadn't disappeared entirely. Just be honest with yourself about where you need to grow. The program can only help if you're willing to see your blind spots. She nodded thoughtfully. You're good at this advice thing. Maybe you're not too soft after all. Just differently. Strong. Coming from Sophia, this was monumental recognition. I felt something shift between us. Not a complete transformation, but the beginning of mutual respect. See you next Sunday? She asked. I'll be there, I replied. As I watched her walk to her car, I realized that sometimes the greatest power isn't in controlling others' fates, but in staying true to yourself despite what others perceive. Sophia had always commanded attention through volume and showmanship. I had found my influence through listening, understanding, and quiet competence. Different paths, different strengths, both valid. My phone buzzed with an email from Richard. Maya, your sister's first leadership program assessment just came in. Impressive improvement already. Thought you'd want to know. I smiled and put my phone away. Some victories don't need to be announced at brunch. Some satisfaction comes from watching others grow, even if they never fully understand your role in their journey. And sometimes, the person you thought would never see your value finally recognizes it. Not because you forced them to, but because you remained steadfast in your own worth until they couldn't help but notice. Next Sunday's brunch would be different. And the one after that. Small shifts, building towards something new. Not perfect, but better. And in my book, that was progress worth celebrating. Quietly, in my own way.